I'd like to bring us to a new topic, and just circling back around with energy. In September, BHE Montana celebrated a major milestone with the groundbreaking ceremony of the Glacier Battery Storage System and Glacier Intertie Substation up in Cutbank. These innovative projects are designed to support Montana's wind and solar energy generation. And as we've been talking about alternative renewables, this is critical into that space. Bringing not only renewable energy solutions, but also significant economic growth to different parts of our state. And that's really impactful to remember that we are a broad state, and doing things all over the state to help grow the state is important. To provide us with a deeper understanding of the transformational energy investment that they've made, we're honored to have Nancy Murray, president of BHE Montana, and Dwayne Howard, vice president of Energy Services. Their leadership and expertise in driving these projects forward is critical to the success of them. We're ready to hear their insights. Please help me welcome to the stage.
When we planned this business days at the Capitol, and you always go in with well-placed plans, and we oversold, and then we had a waiting list. And it's the first time that Stacy, who leads this from a planning perspective, came to me about a week ago and said, I really am hoping for a massive snowstorm or a storm because we're going to need to do something to cut down on the numbers of people that are going to actually be attending. And then we got that, and then I thought about maybe changing the title away from an energy theme to planes, trains, and automobiles, because a number of you, that's exactly how you got to Montana, is using various sorts of modes of transportation in order to get here. And so we don't have Dwayne Howard with us. We have had some changes to that, and so why don't we start with quick introductions, and we'll go from there, Dustin.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, so I was among the planes, trains, automobiles crowd. I took a really fun Uber ride from Bozeman into Helena. It was my longest Uber ride, I think, of my Ubering career. So I'm not Dwayne. I'm Dustin Owens. I'm director of government relations. I've got responsibilities for BHE Montana, BHE UST, and BHE. I don't know. Canada's the 51st state pretty soon, so I'm not sure what we'll call it, but and really pleased to be here. We're like such big supporters of, fans of the chamber, the work that it does, and we're just thrilled to be here. So thanks, Todd.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. This is your first business days at the Capitol. Can you give us a thought of kind of how things have been for you so far?
This is on. Yes, this is our first visit to the business days at the Capitol. We were fortunate to participate in the Governor Summit last fall, so we're not strangers to the organization, but this has been terrific. It's been wonderful to get the context. We spent time over at the reception with legislators last night, the event this morning. It's great to learn more about the overall political situation in Montana and the people, meet the people who are helpful to making things happen here.
So Berkshire Hathaway, that's a name that like immediately gets people to sit up straight when they hear that, right? And
there is name recognition there.
There is some name recognition there, and it's, Burlington Northern Santa Fe is one of the other big names that we recognize here in Montana with the Berkshire Hathaway sort of backing behind it. Not a lot of folks are familiar with the Berkshire Hathaway Energy name. Can you give us a little quick background on what that looks like?
Sure. So, of course, as Todd says, people know the Berkshire Hathaway name. Berkshire Hathaway Energy is one of the larger affiliates of the overall organization, and owns I think it's about 6 regulated utilities across the country. Pacificor, you will have heard of. The 2 entities in Nevada, Mid-American, which is the Iowa regulated utility, and then some gas pipelines, Kern River, Dominion on the East Coast, and then near and dear to our operations, unregulated independent power affiliates who are charged with developing and growing the energy business, both in the generation space and transmission as well.
This last year, as you referenced, you were at the Governor's Economic Summit that was co-hosted by the Montana Chamber of Commerce. You made a pretty significant announcement there. Can you remind us of what that announcement was?
Sure, happily. BHE Montana was actually originally in Montana, operating in Montana as NatureEner, and owned 3 wind farms up in the Cutbank Shelby area. And in 1922, BHE acquired, I was with that company, so they acquired us.
2022.
2022.
Yep.
It
wasn't 1922.
Not
No.
1922. Dating myself. In 2022. They did that in part because they had already invested and owned the Montana-Alberta transmission line, which is about a 270-mile line that runs from Great Falls to Lethbridge in Alberta, Canada. At the summit, we announced that we were building battery storage, a 75-megawatt battery storage unit, and changing interconnection of the existing wind farms to give ourselves more opportunity to access more and different markets. And we are also, and those projects are both in construction, happy to say, and we expect them to be operational by the end of the year. I think in record time, I'm very happy to say. And then we have a solar project, a 100-megawatt solar project in development. And a shout out to our development team here. Steve Laufenberg is here at the front table. And we're part of a large organization, but we are a small team. So Steve is, to a great extent, our development team, and he's doing a terrific job. And so then we have the battery and the solar that we announced at that time, and now some additional activity.
News here today?
Yeah, Dustin, you want to do the honors on that?
It was news yesterday, correct?
Yeah.
It's on.
It's such a quiet feedback. Yeah, so thanks for the tee up. So it was news yesterday. Berkshire Hathaway Energy U.S. Transmission, we announced our intent to participate on the North Plains Connector Transmission Project, which is a massive project. It's 3,000 megawatts. East-west, connecting the western interconnection with the eastern interconnection, which is in and of itself novel. And then you add the size, the 3,000 megawatts. That'll go through the state of Montana, which I think is going to prove to be incredibly strategic, allowing for the state to grow and benefit economically from the availability of that incremental transmission in and out through that high voltage system. So shout outs to Grid United in the room, important partners on that project. They announced the project well before us, but we're thrilled to be a participant on that piece of infrastructure.
So this is all an indication that Berkshire Hathaway has some confidence in the state of Montana. I mean, you're making some sizable investments in this state, even by Berkshire Hathaway sort of standards, right?
True.
Talk
Very
to us
true.
a little bit about what that means and why you have that level of confidence in the state of Montana.
Well, I think from our operations in the past, we've found Montana to be a great place to do business. Clearly, great people to work with, great business environment. I, in a prior life, did energy development projects in some 20 different states, I'd say. All of those experiences, development in Montana has been by far and away the best, the most efficient. So there are those reasons. There are synergies with our existing assets, but I think Dustin will also speak to some of the overarching market conditions that are very, very special to Montana.
For sure. So, like, I'm going to paraphrase from my boss's boss. So he's the president of Berkshire, and he's said publicly, so I don't mind repeating it, like, BHE wants to invest where that investment is welcomed, and it has been absolutely welcomed in the state of Montana. The chamber has been like an absolute ally and partner in helping us navigate through, learning through what the state's doing, and the governor has been like an incredible leader on his vision for unleashing American energy. Like that's precisely what we're trying to do with our portfolio. But to get like tiny bit technical, I guess what I would say is we think that the state is so well situated for growth. So it's located in this hub or nexus point between multiple electricity markets, and without being or part of explicitly in RTO, Montana can achieve a ton of benefits by virtue of that strategic location. So it's sort of nested on this market scene between you've got WEC and markets within WEC, like you famously EIM and you got EDEM and SPP and Markets Plus, and now you'll have access to the MISO, which is, I think I last checked, it's like 151,000 megawatts to the east. So you've got this great location that benefits, I think, the state enormously in its attempt to grow energy production. So you get access to this liquidity through market access and access to all these markets, including, by the way, the northern market, which is Alberta, through the MATL project. And then it also benefits like loads, customers, like large industrial customers. We heard a lot about this yesterday, about this, just the magnitude of the energy demand. So like WEC last year updated its forecast. WEC.
Western Electric
Coordinating Council. Yeah, so WEC is like this, sorry.
There were a few acronyms there.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. Yeah, like anybody can kick me from the audience or from my, like acronyms are part of this business, unfortunately. But where am I going with that? So WEC, it's the coordinating forum for all of the Western grid, the Western interconnection. Like for context, it's like 270,000 megawatts of installed capacity, which is like 270 times larger than just Montana. But what that does for Montana is it gives the state access to growth. Like we heard this yesterday, and I think it was really well stated. It was like the biggest potential inhibitor to economic growth is like us in Montana, and this is true for everywhere in the country, not being able to build fast enough supply. So projects like North Plains Connector, like it starts to alleviate that a little bit, and it gives us, like as a state, like a ton of flexibility to rapidly grow, to rapidly respond to demand growth. And we're seeing this, like we're seeing these projects like data centers potentially be only really inhibited by their inability to get generation, to get energy in a timely basis. So that clunky acronym that I mentioned, it's just a agency body for the Western interconnection. They updated their forecast just year over year. They increased their 10-year look ahead for demand growth by 75%. So it went up to like just shy of 20% growth in electrical demand in just 10-year period. So you got to think about like the Western grid having to grow like by a fifth just in 10 years to respond. And like we're seeing a lot of customers say, gosh, we'd love to build this project, but we're not sure if we're going to have access to electrical supply. So we're thrilled that Montana is really optimally situated to take advantage of all of these various neighboring markets. And it's clearly shown a preference through the leadership of the governor to build quickly and efficiently with as few barriers as possible. So I just give you a really verbose answer, but we're really bullish on the state for all of those reasons.
Access exists to the Western markets, access into the Southwest, part right exiting Montana. We're working on east-west in the eastern part of the state through Grid United, and north into Alberta, which has not always been smooth in Alberta, right? Because you do have some challenges with the tie-in to Alberta. Can you elaborate on what that challenge might be?
Yeah, for sure. So like we call these like in the business like market seams. So the Montana-Alberta tie line is Alberta's sole electric interconnection with the U.S., like via Montana. And the Alberta electric system operator has struggled at times to manage like the what we'll call it the energy transition, right? So they've experienced like under frequency events. This is like a grid physics issue. But to resolve that or to compensate for that lack of grid strength, they've kept quite a bit of headroom, which means that like the Montana-Alberta tie line, it's a 300 megawatts bidirectional transmission line. They've held up about 2/3 of that going northbound. And why that matters, like to Montanans and to Montana businesses, is when you start to limit the flow of electrons, like in any direction, you lower market access, you suffocate a little bit of the liquidity, the expected returns on your investment. So when generators build in Montana, they expect to have reasonable access to transmission into the markets through that transmission. If that gets stymied for anti-competitive or just reasons of physics, that's a net bad thing. So what I would say is I think we're very optimistic that problem will be resolved, and I would say, like, for this audience, like, we've had a champion in the Montana Chamber of Commerce on this issue. So we've had this sort of back and forth with the Alberta government saying, hey, can you step in and help alleviate this? I think we're really optimistic that is going to occur, and sooner rather than later, but getting there wasn't easy. And we had a strong partner in the Montana Chamber that said, when we were struggling with, how do we tackle this problem, Todd in the group was like, well, we'll lend our support to this, and they did that, and it really, in our view, it really perceptibly moved the needle. So I want to say thanks for that.
Yeah, thank you. That's what we do, right? Like we want you to be here. We want you to be successful. Talk about the trajectory from a Berkshire Hathaway standpoint of electricity growth and where you see all this going on in kind of a national sort of a basis or a regional, if that's more comfortable for you. Like we're spending a lot of time talking about energy and electricity here over the course of the last couple of days. Where do you see this thing going over the course of the next 10, 15 years?
Well, we've mentioned the North Plains connector with Grid United. I don't think we've emphasized what a big deal that is, because it will connect us to the Southwest Power Pool, which is the states south of North Dakota, that whole line of states. But also that line will go from Colstrip, which is a major transmission line across Montana, to North Dakota, connecting the western and eastern interconnections in the country. And that, I think, is unique. I don't believe there is a transmission line currently connecting those two, possibly through Texas, but that's always a whole different story electrically. And so that will, it essentially, it creates, it's so significant for the country in that it's a security issue in connecting these two interconnections. It enhances reliability, redundancy, security, and commercially just it creates great flexibility in bringing markets together and allowing for a much greater influx of energy into Montana, because that line will go both ways. So you'll have a much greater supply of energy. And we see that as a part of an overall focus in the country. I think data centers, the need for AI, and thus data centers drive it, but there is a focus across the country on the need for electricity. Berkshire Hathaway is very focused on, we've got a team working on developing the reliability criteria so necessary for data centers. They have to have a high level of redundancy. because they don't go down, right? You can't let a data center go. That's the whole essence of that business. And we're not only focused on supplying energy for data centers, but also looking to develop some data. We have a separate team looking to develop data centers. So we want to supply, enhance the supply and generation of electricity, and then we also intend to be a part of supporting the growth of AI, et cetera, through supplying these data centers.
I'm going to editorialize for just a second. I spent 15 years of my career working in the coal industry. Molly Schwinn is sitting here. We worked together. Over the last 10 years, the amount of baseload electrical generation that has been retired in this country is no surprise to us that today we're sitting in the place that we are today. We're now talking about a massive energy crisis that is facing this country. This is not a surprise to us that worked in the coal or the baseload power generation piece. And so I'll stop with that editorial. But it's not lost on me that this is where we are today, and now we're trying to figure out how to make up for what has been undone over the course of the last 10 years. When we think about economic development and Montana's had this great economy, this great growing economy, but it's not been uniformly distributed throughout the state. Most of that activity has occurred primarily in the western part of the state and primarily in places like Bozeman and Missoula and Kalispell. But your investment in Montana is happening in very rural part of our state. And I think it's important to kind of elaborate a little bit on what that investment means in places like Cut Bank.
So our wind farms and our new facilities, the battery storage and solar, are located in Glacier and Toole counties. Glacier is, I think, one of the most economically challenged counties in the state. Population for our latest wind farm is in the Sunburst, Kevin area. I think each have a population of roughly 300 people. Shelby and Cut Bank, much larger at about 3,000 each. So these are small communities. And we have seen through the operation of the wind farms, which have been going about 10 to 12 years now, the significant impact that type of investment in rural areas can have. First of all, we lease out the land, and the landowners that we work with, we are told regularly what a significant difference it can make for them to hold on to the land, to keep the land in the family, because ranching, agriculture, very challenging. And many, going through generations, lots of times the kids don't want to do that, but they want to hold on to the land. And the wind turbines, which have a relatively small footprint, allow continued operations, ranching or farming, but also provide a steady, reliable stream of revenue that enables them to stay there. That's really significant. And then there's just the whole concept, we're bringing jobs. We employ about 7 people directly, but we have our O&M provider who has, I think, around 30 people. So we employ a good percentage of that population right now. And then we contribute to the tax base. Someone mentioned a $12 million contribution from wind to the state's tax base. We're providing our percentage of that, a good percentage of that in our property taxes, which are centrally assessed but get allocated back to the counties to a great extent, and have enhanced, contributed to development and construction of the schools, of a library, very fundamental amenities required for those areas that they just simply would not otherwise have or be able to support. When we go into construction with these new facilities, we will be bringing hundreds of people through, contractors to construct, and then you have them coming in and staying in the local hotels, eating at the local restaurants, and there's just a ripple effect through the community. So people in the area are very excited, we're very excited to be able to contribute to that and make a difference in that area.
And you've got something going on in Great Falls College
And
too.
we
Is that
really-
correct?
We are opening an office in Great Falls that we're very excited about. It's in construction right now. We expect to start, we've been hiring people, but have had to have them work from home, but we expect they'll be able to start occupying probably in March for the general office there. That office will include a control center, which is a 24/7 operations center by which we operate our facilities remotely. And we also, through that control center, provide operational services for some other companies. We look to expand that business and be able to provide services to other small independent power companies who don't want to invest in a 24/7 control center, because that's a little pricey. But we have that office that will be developed, and the control center will be operating probably more in the April timeframe or so. That control center, and we have one in Florida that we currently operate from, requires, as I said, 24/7 support and a highly trained technical team, which is not easy to find, people who have that expertise and training. So we are, Todd, we're talking with Great Falls College, which is part of the state school system, about developing an industrial certification program that will be terrific for us in that it gives us a stream of people to staff our centers, and we hope good for the community. These are good paying jobs and interesting, challenging. People need a great degree of understanding of the IT tech component of it, but also all of the rules and requirements imposed by the feds, basically, on what is needed to operate the electrical grid reliably. So we're very excited about our office in Great Falls. We're excited about being in Great Falls. We've had terrific cooperation from, I see Brett Donnie as from Great Falls Development Alliance. They've been really helpful to us in getting established in Great Falls, and so a shout out to them. And not only have they been helping us with our office, but they're helping us with some of the making connections for some of the commercial transactions that we're looking forward to being able to do once we're fully up and running.
As we wrap up, any final thoughts? Dustin, Nancy?
I think I'd just add a effusive thanks to the chamber. We're so excited as a company to continue investing here, and we think, like I said before, that this is going to be a great decade for the state to be able to invest, just to receive investments, to grow its economy, and not to be constrained like other jurisdictions might be, because we're going to be able to add both supply and demand into the state. So just bullishness abounds at BHE Montana.
Thank you for choosing Montana. We're glad to have you here. Anything we can do to make you home, to make this more home for you and to be successful, you know how to get a hold of all of us that are here. So thank you so much, BHE Montana.
Thank you.